Most people spend years trying to figure out the narcissist. They read every book they can find. They scroll through forums late into the night. They lie awake at 3 in the morning, replaying conversations again and again, searching for the exact moment everything started to fall apart. They want to understand why someone who claimed to love them treated them like an object, why someone who promised safety became the very person they needed protection from. And the difficult truth that almost no one tells you early enough is this: understanding a narcissist will not save you. Studying their behavior will not set you free. And trying to fight them on their terms will never truly work. Because the narcissist has been playing this game their entire life. They have been manipulating, controlling, and feeding off other people long before you ever entered the picture. You are not dealing with someone who simply behaves badly now and then. You are dealing with someone who simply behaves badly now and then. A personality structure that was slowly built piece by piece to consume others. But here is what they do not want you to realize. What actually brings a narcissist down does not look like revenge. It does not look like shouting, exposing them publicly, or finally winning the argument they have dragged you into for months. What brings them down is something much quieter, much colder, and far more lasting. It is a specific set of psychological shifts that dismantles the very structure their false self depends on. And once you begin to see how that structure works, you will understand exactly where to apply pressure. Not through anger, not through cruelty, but through clarity. This is not about becoming like them. It is not a guide to manipulation or playing games. It is a clear outline of 4 precise ways to remove yourself as their source of power. And if you apply even one of these consistently, you will start to notice something inside them begin to crack. Not because you hurt them, but because you finally stop allowing them to hurt you. That single act of pulling away is enough to send a narcissist into a quiet but damaging spiral. One that no amount of charm or control can fully repair. Before getting into the 4 methods, you need to understand one essential idea. The narcissist does not actually exist in the way you think they do, at least not psychologically. Beneath the confidence, beneath the arrogance, beneath the carefully constructed image they present to the world, there is nothing solid, an empty center, no stable sense of self, no internal direction, no genuine emotional life they can access on their own. What they have instead is a false self, a character they created often in childhood, as a way to defend against overwhelming feelings of shame, inadequacy, and worthlessness that their developing mind could not handle. So they buried those feelings, locked them away, built a performance on top of them, and decided that the performance was who they truly were. The problem is that a performance always needs an audience. Without people watching, reacting, affirming, fearing, or even resisting the act, it begins to collapse. Without external validation, the narcissist cannot regulate their emotions, cannot maintain their sense of superiority, and cannot escape the emptiness beneath the mask. This is not just a metaphor. It is their psychological reality. They depend entirely on other people to feel like they exist. And the most powerful, addictive, and reliable source of that dependency has been you. Every time you reacted to their moods, you gave them something. Every time you adjusted your behavior to avoid conflict, you strengthened them. Every time you defended yourself, apologized, cried, or fought back, you confirmed that they were the center of your world. For a personality built on the need to be central, there is no stronger fuel than someone who continues to revolve around them even when it causes pain. That is the game. That has always been the game. And this is where the 4 methods begin, because each one targets a different layer of what the narcissist relies on. The first targets their position of power. The second disrupts their false image. The third cuts off their access to you. The fourth removes their psychological lifeline. Together, they do not just protect you. They slowly dismantle the system the narcissist has built inside your life, your mind, and even your nervous system. None of these methods require aggression. None of them require direct confrontation. In fact, the more emotionally neutral you are when applying them, the more effective they become. The narcissist can handle your anger. They have been using it against you for years. What they cannot handle is your lack of interest. What they cannot process is a version of you that no longer needs them. That version of you is not cold. It is not broken. It is not defeated. It is free. And your freedom, your steady, quiet, undramatic freedom is the most threatening thing you could ever present to them. So everything begins at the foundation. It begins with the thing that has been draining you without you fully noticing. The energy you have been giving away, the attention you have been investing in someone who was never capable of giving it back. And what happens the moment you stop? Because the narcissist does not fear your anger. They do not fear your tears. They do not even fear you leaving if they believe they can still pull you back. What they truly fear at a level so deep, most of them cannot even articulate it, is becoming irrelevant. The possibility that you might go through your day, make your choices, build your life, and think of them no more than you think of a stranger passing by. That quiet, unremarkable absence of interest is where their downfall begins. Here is the first way to unsettle a narcissist, and it starts not with what you do to them, but with what you finally stop doing for them. The first method is about energy. Specifically, the energy you have been losing to someone who will never return it. To understand why this matters so deeply, you have to see what they have been doing with it all along. Think about your typical day in that relationship. From the moment you woke up, part of your mind was already focused on them, watching, analyzing, preparing. What mood will they be in today? Did last night's tension carry into this morning? Should you speak first or wait for them to set the tone? You read their expressions the way someone studies the sky before a storm, searching for signs, adjusting your behavior, staying alert. This was not something you consciously chose. It became automatic, a survival habit built over time in an unpredictable emotional environment. Your nervous system learned that monitoring them was safer than being caught off guard by them. So it never stopped. That constant awareness is not just exhausting. It is a direct transfer of your most valuable resource into their control. Your attention, your mental space, your emotional energy, all of it flowing toward them throughout the day. Even when they were not physically present, even when you were working, socializing, or trying to rest, they occupied space in your mind that belonged to you. And they did not earn it. They created it through inconsistency, through cycles of warmth and coldness, through just enough kindness to keep you hopeful, and just enough cruelty to keep you anxious. They built an environment where thinking about them felt necessary for your safety. And for a long time it was. But here is the shift. The first method is not about ignoring them. It is not about silent treatment or pretending not to care while still being emotionally attached. Those are still forms of attention. The narcissist can sense the energy behind forced detachment. They are highly attuned to emotional signals, because reading people has always been their primary tool. If you pretend not to care while your body is tense and your mind is still focused on them, they will feel it. And as long as they feel it, they know they still matter. What actually removes their power is something that cannot be imitated. It is a genuine internal shift, a quiet decision to stop making them the center of your life, to stop measuring your day by their reactions, to stop filtering your choices through the question of how they might respond. It is about reclaiming the mental and emotional space they have been occupying, not through dramatic rejection, but by simply redirecting your energy elsewhere, back into yourself, back into the life they disrupted. This process begins with something many people resist because it feels like surrender. It begins with grief, real grief, not anger disguised as grief, not obsessive thinking disguised as healing, but the deep, quiet, painful acceptance that the person you loved was never fully real, that the version of them you fell for, the attentive, magnetic, seemingly devoted person from the beginning, was a performance carefully designed to draw you in, that the relationship you believed you were building was from their side more of a transaction. Grieving this is not weakness. It is the most important psychological work you will ever do. Because until you grieve the illusion, a part of you will keep reaching for it. You will keep hoping that early version returns. You will keep giving chances that cost you deeply and mean very little to them. When that grief is allowed to complete, something quiet but powerful begins to happen. Not overnight, not in a dramatic way, but gradually. The emotional charge surrounding them begins to fade. You stop replaying arguments in your mind. You stop analyzing their behavior, searching for logic that was never really there. You stop waiting for an apology they are not capable of genuinely giving. And in that space, something that belongs to you starts to come back to life. This is when the shift becomes visible. Not because you say something new, not because you suddenly act differently on the surface, but because the quality of your presence changes. You stop tensing when they enter the room. You stop pretending to be calm while fear runs underneath. You stop over-explaining, over-apologizing, over-accommodating, not because you forced yourself to stop, but because the urgency that once drove those behaviors is no longer there. And the narcissist senses this almost immediately. They are wired to detect changes in their supply. When the flow that once moved toward them begins to pull away, they feel it like a sudden drop in temperature. They will test it. They will push. They will create situations designed to pull you back into reacting, back into the familiar pattern where their emotional state becomes your emergency. And your only task in that moment is to notice what is happening without letting it take control of you. Not cold, not cruel, just steady, present in your own experience rather than consumed by theirs. Because here is the truth about a narcissist's power. It was never truly theirs. It was yours on loan. Every bit of influence they had over your mood, your self-worth, your sense of reality came from the energy you provided. You were the source. You were the engine. The moment you genuinely begin taking that energy back, not as a tactic, but as a lived reality, their power does not slowly weaken. It vanishes because it was never created by them. It only existed through what you gave. Pulling your energy back does not start a war. It ends one quietly on your terms. And the narcissist left without their main source of stability begins to feel the first signs of collapse, that the remaining methods will deepen. Once you start reclaiming your energy, the narcissist does not calmly accept the loss. They cannot. Their entire psychological structure depends on the supply you once provided. And when that supply begins to dry up, their next defense activates automatically. They push harder into the image. They lean more heavily into the false self. They become more grandiose, more performative, more insistent that you and everyone around them see them the way they need to be seen. This is exactly where the second method begins. Because the false self, despite how rigid it appears, has a critical weakness. It cannot withstand contact with reality. The narcissist has constructed a story about who they are. It is always a flattering version. The exceptional professional, the selfless partner, the misunderstood genius, the long-suffering victim. The details may shift, but the structure remains the same. They are special. They are superior. And anything that challenges that image is either someone else's fault or a direct attack on them. This story is not just pride. It is structural support. Without it, there is nothing separating their conscious identity from the deep well of shame, inadequacy, and self-rejection that exists beneath the surface. The false self is not about ego alone. It is a survival mechanism which makes it both powerful and extremely fragile at the same time. You have likely experienced this fragility firsthand. Perhaps you have pointed out a contradiction, questioned a story, or calmly highlighted something that did not add up, and you remember what followed. Not a calm discussion, not reflection, but an explosion, withdrawal, or a sudden reversal where you became the problem, the attacker, the one who never supports them. The reaction felt excessive because it was. You are not just challenging a fact, you are brushing against the structure holding everything together. This is why the second method avoids direct confrontation. Direct confrontation gives them something to fight. When you approach with emotion, frustration, or pain, you hand them a narrative. Suddenly the focus shifts to your tone, your reaction, your supposed instability. They are highly skilled at this shift. They have practiced it for years. Your emotion becomes their escape route. This is why every attempt to fight fairly has likely left you feeling like you lost a game you did not even realize you were playing. The second method works differently. Instead of attacking the false self, you reflect reality back to it calmly, clearly, without emotional charge. You become a mirror, not a weapon, a mirror. And a mirror simply shows what is there. Nothing more, nothing less. Here is how it looks in real moments. The narcissist tells a story, perhaps at dinner, an achievement exaggerated beyond recognition, a version of events that removes their responsibility, a kind act described in a way that does not match what you witnessed. In the past, you felt trapped between two choices: agree and support the illusion or challenge it and face the fallout. The mirror approach introduces a third option. You do not react dramatically. You ask a simple, grounded question, one that does not accuse or provoke, just a quiet return to reality. Something like, how does that line up with what happened with the client last quarter? Or, I thought the decision was made before you joined. Or even, that's interesting, I remember it differently. No sharp tone, no need to prove a point, just placing reality next to their version and letting it exist there. The immediate effect is subtle but real. A flicker, a brief moment of exposure. Their expression shifts even slightly because they feel the gap between the story and the truth, and they know you see it too. They cannot easily dismiss you as emotional. They cannot frame you as attacking them. You gave them nothing to push against. You were simply present, steady and unmoved by the performance. Over time, when this is done consistently, it creates a deeper effect. It makes you exhausting to perform around. The narcissist depends on an audience that follows the script, that accepts the narrative, that plays the assigned role without resistance. When you quietly refuse to do that, when you consistently bring reality into the space without creating drama, you become the one person they cannot relax around, the one presence that makes the mask feel heavy. And a mask that feels heavy eventually becomes one they either have to remove or avoid altogether. Before that point, they will push harder. That is expected. When their usual tactics fail, when guilt, anger, silence, or sudden affection no longer move you, they will reach for something sharper. They will use old wounds, your insecurities, the personal things you once shared in trust. This is not a sign of your failure. It is a sign the mirror is working. Escalation is often the crack that appears before collapse. And your role does not change. Stay steady, stay factual, stay clear, because the false self cannot survive consistent exposure to reality. It was never designed for that. It was built to exist in environments where truth is ignored or reshaped. The moment you stop participating in that distortion, everything begins to shift. There is a moment that almost everyone who has lived with a narcissist recognizes, even if they could not name it at the time. A quiet internal shift. A moment where something inside loosens, where the fog thins just enough to reveal what has really been happening, where the explanations you were given for years that you were too sensitive, too demanding, too flawed, too deserving of less, begin to lose their grip and no longer land with the same weight they once did. That moment is not dramatic. It does not arrive with clarity and confidence fully formed. It appears fragile, incomplete, easy to dismiss or push aside. Yet it is the most important moment in the entire cycle because it marks the first time the narcissist's hold begins to loosen, not because of anything they did, but because something within you stopped accepting it as truth. The third and fourth methods exist inside that loosening. They are not actions directed at the narcissist. They are structures you build within yourself that make you unreachable to them. And when a narcissist loses access to someone they have been drawing from, the results are not minor. They are not subtle. They unfold like a structure whose foundation has been quietly removed. Not all at once, but in a way that is steady and inevitable. The third method is individuation, a term that may sound abstract, but it points to something deeply real. It is the process of becoming so fully and unapologetically yourself that there is no longer any psychological space inside you for the narcissist to occupy, not because you build walls, but because you fill the spaces they once moved through with your own presence, your own values, your own voice, your own clear understanding of who you are and what you will not tolerate. The narcissist's control was never truly about strength. It was about empty space. They entered the areas where your self-worth felt uncertain, where your boundaries were unclear, where your identity was still forming. They found openings and slowly expanded them. They led you to question what you once knew. They made your needs feel like burdens. They made your perceptions feel unreliable, not because they were more powerful, but because you had not yet become fully grounded in yourself.